Hello, everyone. As you can see, these are the statistics for Everton losing to Leeds at Ellen Road by 1 goal to nil, thanks to the Namichi penalty. And let's be brutally honest, yeah, Leeds were a better team. Leeds were a better team from the first half, of course. Everton were a little bit better, as the second half goes on in most cases. But clearly, at Leeds, from like the overall game, was the much better team. Now, I believe the penalty that was being taken, I think you could say that yes, the ball, I mean, the ball was not in unnatural position. The ball is not like away from like his body in any kind of sense. But once you kind of like lean into your arm, of course, and pretty much block a goal scoring opportunity, then I'm sorry, man. You just have to like the referee had to make a decision, and unfortunately, VAR had to just like attach the same decision to the referee. So penalty given. Namichi goes low behind Pickford down at the right corner, and that was your game. And here's a little bit of stats. I think they mentioned this in the Premier League, review, of course. It is only the third time actually, that two promoted teams have won on the opening day. Third time all league. You can talk about 33 years of Premier League football that we've seen two out of the three promoted teams won on opening week. Okay. That is incredible. So my first headline of the many, many headlines of going after match day one is pretty much Sunderland and Leeds are doing it for the promoted teams. Unfortunately, Burnley has to be like the outlier of all of this. And they got beat pretty convincingly by Tottenham. We'll get to Tottenham in a minute. And it shows that it's a little early, way too early to like make proclamations and all this kind of stuff. But consider how last two seasons has been rough, with the promoted teams getting absolutely battered left, right, and center. I think it's gonna take like both Sunderland and Leeds, and maybe Burnley in a couple of months, to improve themselves. And it's going to take like the other teams to like fall off, of course. Because let's be honest, and I mentioned this, of course, earlier, that the gap between the Premier League and the Championship is just, it's big right now. It is gigantically big, to the point of like it's impossible to like survive in the Premier League. But games like against, yeah, and listen, yes, it's against like your West Hams and your West Ham and Everton respectively. It's not like your Man United or your Cities and anything like that. But consider everything that's gone on for the last two seasons. This is probably the step in the right direction for these two teams, and maybe Burnley to like kick on and see if they can do it. Because right now, let's be honest, if Sunderland and Leeds cannot even survive in the Premier League, then sadly none of the teams will get promoted with all the parachute payments and all kind of stuff. Well, so that is pretty much the gist of it. I feel like a huge win for Leeds. Consider that they haven't played football in the last 2 years in the Premier League, and they were good performing, and they were good against Everton and performed well. So there you go. Let me just change my headline just a little bit, and then we go to the main headlines of the weekend. So, all right, there you go. I changed the headline just a little bit. So they say Leeds show hunger in their win against Everton. I feel like Leeds were a better team and all kind of stuff, statistically and all kind of stuff. So that's pretty much it. And now, with match day one pretty much in the books, we are going to talk about the headlines and then look forward to match day two. Let me tell you something. Match day two is going to have a banger. Now, I have to address the elephant in the room. How am I going to say this? Okay, sorry about that. I have a little muscle contraction in my foot. Please be advised, we're still into the summertime, so lots of fluids need to be necessary, and pickle juice is pretty much the norm here. So there's that. Now, where was I before I'm gonna get to this? Ah, yes. So, the first headline, and pretty much the most jarring of headlines, is Semedo's racism remarks from the Liverpool fans in their win against Bournemouth. Now I'm gonna get to the match. We're gonna get to the match because the match is gonna be different from what's happening. It is a it is an absolute disgusting thing that the first match of the season is being marred by something like this. And credit to Semedo, his to go through the mental fortitude of what's going on in the first half, and then manage to score 2 goals to really put Liverpool in the rattles here before the eventual winner. Again, get to the match. But for this to happen, it's just an absolute shame on what to be like the most emotional charge opening night on probably Liverpool's history. With everything that's gone on, with the death of Diego Jota and everything that's gone on, you knew it would be an emotional match. You knew this was going to be an emotional match from the opening minute onwards, especially in the final whistle when Mo Salah kind of cried when when they actually sing the Diego Jota song. So you knew the emotion was going to happen, and for this to happen and to this being marred after such an incredible victory, it's absolutely shameful, especially for Liverpool themselves. My dad was even upset about this whole situation. Now, the Premier League did address this. Anthony Taylor, who was a referee at that time, mentioned about this, talked to the managers, talked to the captains, all that kind of stuff. He did what needed to be done in this moment. He needed to be done within the moments right now. And listen, as a black person as myself, open up this whole thing. It's like a can of worms. It's I'm not saying it's needed to be talked about, but open up this thing is going to be like a can of worms that I'm not sure that many people are. But trying the Premier League and everything like that, and every single person are trying to do their best. There is the no room for racism, the kneel down before every game, the T-shirts and all kind of stuff. But the problem is that I just don't feel like, and this is my opinion, mind you, it's just I don't feel like these things are enough for the black players and pretty much mostly black people in the facility. And it's not just Britain, of course. It's going around in Brazil. It's going around in America and all kind of stuff. It's going around like almost everywhere, every single time, in like big sporting events or any single sporting event at all. So for these things to happen, it's disgusting, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not surprising considering that this is years and years and years. This is years of the same thing that's been happening over and over again. And for any black player to being dealt with all of this, it's tiresome. We saw it with the Vinicius Jr. situation, and even Vinicius Jr. himself wanted to leave Real Madrid. He wanted to leave Real Madrid because of the whole situation with the Valencia fans, of course. But thank God he didn't. He sticked out and he managed to play pretty well that season. So I credit all the black players to go through what they have gone through with the noise and everything that gone through and the social media being absolutely toxic as it is, to like go out of the field and express themselves and do all that jazz. And for that to happen, it has to be mentally draining, especially for players of darker skin and all kind of stuff. Now again, this isn't like listen. I'm sorry that I'm not going to address this whole situation in this channel. I'm going to stick to the whole thing about the Premier League and all the sports. So I'm sorry, this is not the kind of topic that I'm not going to be talking about. It's if you want to have a different topic, you're going to go to somewhere else. Me, I'm just going to do like stats and all kind of stuff. But I'm sorry, as a black person myself, hearing racist chants on a football pitch has to be utterly and freaking disgusting. No amount of racism should be ever put in society or any football pitch ever. And I'm going to stare in the camera and talk to you. Any person saying that should be banned from a football pitch immediately. Not just 2 or 3 years. Immediately. For good. All racist remarks should be beaten sensitively. Okay, no, I'm not. That's a SpongeBob reference. But all racist remarks from fans should be stomped out. And any person saying that should never be on a freaking football pitch ever! Ever! And this hurts me, the player, the fans, the manager, everyone. Every single one. So I know this channel is small and is not getting much views than anybody else, but on behalf of my channel, we as the community of the Premier League community, the small YouTube channel is of course, but we as a footballing community are sickening because of this, are hurt because of this, and I hope that this situation it's only just the first game, mind you. This is just the very first game of the Premier League season. We don't want any more of this throughout the Premier League. We don't want any more of this throughout the Premier League and every other league. But I feel like, and this is just a little bit of discussion, by the way. I feel like there's gonna be like more of this coming to you. Oh, Akeem, it's not gonna happen. Oh, it's gonna happen. It's going to keep happening. It's gonna keep happening over and over and over and over and over again, unless we can do something about it. Unless we can do something about it. And I feel like this is gonna come from society themselves. Society has to grow and has to embrace this situation. It has to come from the root. These problems have to be are rooted and being seeded from years of from slavery and plantation mindset to all these other things, and it has to be grounded out. Education need to be done. Management has to be done. Everything has to be done in order for this to happen. The problem is that these fans or hooligans, in some cases, are going to keep doing this because they got a free ticket, they got free speeches, and all this kind of stuff. Fine. I am not going to excuse all the fans for like going out there and enjoy a free game. Imagine saying that in front of your children or something. Imagine your wife watching it, or your coworker, or your best friend, or your wife, or watching this. Do you know how hurtful it is? And especially if your wife is like going out with like a black person or something. You know how hurtful it is for you to say that? It is. It will be. You will be disgusted because of this. She will be disgusted about it. Your kids will be disgusted about this. So now, get that guy out of every stadium ever in Premier League history. In fact, get him out of England, for God's sakes. He should never be on a football pitch in his entire life. No matter how old or gray he'll be, you will never say that. And it's a damn shame that this thing ruined such a fantastic football game. Because, my God, this game was absolutely good. So, beyond the crappiness that's going on, Liverpool versus Bournemouth was an absolute treat to watch. It's an absolute treat to watch. Let me just look at the matches. Yeah, okay. Okay. By the way, this is next week's fixtures. Yeah, this was an absolute treat to watch this game, and it was an incredible treat. Hugo Ekitike was an absolute beast. He was a man of the match, of course, in that game. They scored 2 goals, first in the 37 minutes and then for the 49 minutes. And from there on, you're thinking to yourself, okay, Liverpool's going to easily beat this Bournemouth team. They're going to easily beat this Bournemouth team. Now, the real concern, from Liverpool is not the attacking concern. It's the defense. And I think we saw that from the Crystal Palace Community Shield game, in which, like, you're going to rely on a 38-year-old Virgil van Dijk and Konate to be your defensive stalwarts. Good luck. It's not gonna end well, and sadly, it did not end well as well. Antonio Semedo, the guy that I mentioned about it, scored 2 goals, one of which was kind of like he was all alone, and nobody, not even Van Dijk himself, who we all know is a great defender, can't even pick him up. He can't even pick up the defender, and then he just Solomon's in, go through, and then he managed to like, you know what, I'm gonna shoot this from themselves, which he did. And from that moment on, I was thinking to myself, yeah, okay, I'm not sure that Liverpool can win. And there's a back of my brain must be thinking, maybe Bournemouth might win this match. Maybe Bournemouth might win this match. But then came the most unlikeliest hero in probably Liverpool's history. Actually, no, probably the most unlikeliest hero in this match. Federico Chiesa. Guy who only played 7 minutes in this match and 7 matches in the Premier League prior to this match comes up with the winner. It was a kind of like a deflected shot, a little deflected header and all kind of stuff. And then he decided to just one time this whole thing, bombs it away, and you can see the emotions from the fans, from the players. It was incredible. And then Mo Salah decided to be Mo Salah and actually scored for the 10th time in all opening day matches to score the 4th goal and put the game to bed. By the way, he is now the 3rd most joint goal scorer in Premier League history, behind Andy Cole. In fact, Andy Cole, and then Harry Kane, and then Shearer as my top 4. Can you believe Mo Salah being the most dominant goal scorer in all Premier League history? I wouldn't. But to consider his age and consider like he's got 2 years on his deal and he's going to score like 20, 30 goals, I think he might pull it off. I think it's maybe an overreaction, but I think Mo Salah could pull off the Premier League all-time goal scoring list probably this season. And if he doesn't, well, I think I may be wrong, but I think it might happen. So despite all the controversy, and yes, there was a handball that should have been like a red card, of course, denying a goal scoring opportunity, and the whole thing that I already said like about 10 minutes ago, this was a thrilling game. This was an emotional game. The tribute to Diego Jota and his brother was absolutely fantastic with all the "You'll Never Walk Alone," the emotional singing and all kind of stuff, and the florals. The display was incredible. It was such an emotional thing, and it's such. I know this is only one game, and I know Liverpool have like many games coming up, and I know they got like a long season ahead. But I hope, and this is for my sake, that I hope that Liverpool will win a title for this team after going through so much. Like I said, I think this may hurt Liverpool's season or might help them and carry on, of course, with the diversity. But, but, despite all of that, despite all the defensive faculties, which I think Liverpool has to improve in order for them to win, consider that Manchester City and consider that Chelsea and consider Arsenal are like in the same tier as you guys. I think the result is pretty good. Just ignore the crappy stuff and all kind of stuff. But I think Liverpool have a great win. That was a great win and a great matchup and a huge win on a night of so much emotions and so much praise. So that's pretty much done. And we go to the Saturday's games. And I have the headline Newcastle dominated but lacking striking quality. And you notice that I put the striking in the quotation marks because Newcastle, I think you need Isak. Yeah. Um of course. So Aston Villa did not play great. Statistically did not play great. And even the red card by Ezri Konsa did not do well. And by the way, that was a red card. He was the last man. Guy was going through. Easy red card. No doubt about it. They got 1.43 expected goals. Let's go to the overall stats, by the way. 16 shots to 3. Each are 3 shots on target. But the XG was way in favor of Newcastle. And the ball possession was way in favor. But there goes the one thing that's in the back of Newcastle's minds. And that the loss of Isak, if he goes or not. But the lack of striking quality in this team, and the lack of a striker, a lack of a number 9 to put away all the chances, may come back to hurt Newcastle in the long run. And of course, they got a new strike, and they have a new transfer, of course, in Barnes, which could help them, of course. But if Isak goes, and if he goes to like, let's call it Liverpool, by the way, for 150 million pounds, that could, and I say could, really hurt them. That could really help them, of course, with the financial coupon and probably buy a striker or two. But in terms of like everything that's going on, it's like they need Isak. Desperately, they need Isak and all kind of stuff. So yeah, that is a whole that I mean Newcastle did well in this game, but did not do anything much. First of all, my condolences to the fan of Brighton who sadly fell ill and passed off. So, a little moment of silence for him or her. There you go. Now let's go to Brighton versus Fulham, which all the statistics are favoring Brighton. They even scored a goal from a penalty, and you're thinking to yourself, okay, Brighton win this game. However, yeah, Munoz snatched an equalizer in the 96th minute. Keep in mind, the final kick of the game. I was going to barber, by the way. I was trying to get my face getting good because of course, yesterday is my birthday. Thank you to my parents for carrying out my birthday dinner, and thank you to all my friends for showing me birthday wishes and all that good stuff. And by the way, I'm officially 28 years old. So happy goodness to me. But I was going to the barber, and I was looking forward to the Manchester City Wolves matchup, which, let's be honest, that game was not even close, to be honest. And I was looking at it and saying, okay, Brighton won this game. And then Munoz managed an equalizer to go through. Now, I was thinking to myself, okay, maybe you show the clips, but then again, I might be copyrighted. So I decided I'm not gonna play the copyrighted game. I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna do that. But what a way to snatch an equalizer from the jaws of defeat. Because let's be honest, Fulham didn't. I mean, Fulham in the statistical category did not look at themselves. 1.48 to 0.76. Yeah, the position is even, and the shots on target is mostly Brighton. So in case in all kind of stuff, it almost felt like Brighton should have won this game. And then Munoz with a 0.15 xG on a goal chance from a pretty tight situation, to be honest, score the equalizer and earn a point. Which, if you're Brighton, is so frustrating, so frustrating if you're Brighton. But if you're Fulham, consider that you haven't done basically anything in the transfer window. To be honest, with a couple of weeks left, I think it's a good point. I think it's a good point to come out of the Anmax with a huge point. And by the way, they're facing my team. They're facing Man United next week. I think that's a good point for Fulham. Let's be honest. I think it's a good point. Sunderland, West Ham. Oh Jesus Christ, West Ham are cooked. Now, let's get to Sunderland. Let's be honest. What a way to end 3,024 days without a win in the Premier League, and what a way to come back in the Premier League after so many years. And my goodness, they made a statement. Alicia Maeda with a goal, and then Daniel Ballard, two header goals, and then a brilliant finish by Wilson Esodu by a pass by Chimis and Talbi on a counter-attack, of course, when West Ham trying to do everything and they couldn't. Impressive win for the Sunderland team. An impressive win for like the promoted teams, because let's be honest, as I said, of course, with Leeds, as I mentioned with Leeds before, that was an impressive win by a team that many people are favored to go down. Now, yes, this is against a West Ham team that is pretty much in more trouble than they're in right now. In fact, West Ham are not the only team that are in trouble. I'll get to more later, but to go out there and play incredible football and actually win, and to pull that off emphatically, a 3-0 win. Like, I was expecting like a 1-0, 2-0, 2-1 victory, kind of close, sneaking in the win. No, 3-0. Impressive. Like, I never expected that scoreline to be happening, especially against a pretty okay-ish West Ham team. Now, unfortunately for Graham Potter, losing to a promoted team is just not good right now for you. You still have time to recover, of course, long season ahead, but if the team is not performing well and the results are like this, everybody's talking about like Urban Amarin could be the first person to be sacked, but Graham Potter and maybe David Moyes could be in the hot seat, of course. You never know. You just never know. Long season ahead, but what an impressive way to come back to the Premier League, Sunderland, and hopefully more games, more victories to come. But the schedule will not be easier from here on out. Tottenham versus Burnley. Richarlison, man, I bow down to you, man. What a goal. What a goal. Goal of the week by a country mile. And he was pretty much the best player of the entire team. He was impressive. Like, yeah, 9.1, subbed up in the 71st minute, 2 goals. He kind of have a hand in the assist that pretty much bring Johnson to the 3rd goal and pretty much kill the game off. Easily my man of the match for this one. And yeah, Tottenham were impressive. They look solid. They look rigid. They look brilliant. And they kind of collapsed against PSG. Let's be honest. Honest to God, they collapsed against PSG. No fault of their own. But as I said in the Super Cup recap, though I feel like Tottenham did really well in that game, and did not and sadly did not have the the defensive structure to even win, or like the mentality to actually win. Now, I think Thomas Frank is doing a good job with this team. I think they are doing brilliantly well to like make sure that the defensive structure is good, to have the attacking purpose doing well, and all those Mohamed Kudos, he balled out. Yeah, kudos, 2 assists, balled out as well. He's pretty good. Like, he was bought for like what, 50 million pounds, pretty much a good bargain in terms of myself. So yeah, I think it is more like this team look impressive. Nothing too much to say about this result. This is against Burnley of all teams. No disrespect to Burnley, but Pretty good impressive win against Tottenham. Pretty good impressive win. Tottenham win, huge win, great start to Thomas Frank Premier League era and all kind of stuff. And now they got to face Manchester City. Good luck to that. Speaking of City, Richarlison is not the only person who balled out this week. Rainers, man. Rainers, man, you balled out. Salute to you, man. Salute to you, man. He balled out. Yeah, scored a goal by the Oscar Bob, then managed to get an assist by Harlan, pretty much the easiest tapping assist. Around 61 minutes, I kind of like tapped out. The game was over. And then Ryan Cherky comes in from Lyon, who, by the way, scored a banger against France in the UEFA Nations League. Yes, he scored a banger against France in UEFA Nations League. So we know how capable he is of scoring really good bangers. He scored a really good banger. He just scored a really good banger in that game against Wolves. The game was pretty much over. Nothing much to say. Domination by Manchester City from start to finish. Wolves are pretty much toothless in all these kind of stuff. And yeah, as you can see, Alon grabs the headline, of course, scoring 2 goals. Pretty much because Alon, it is what it is, Alon. But gotta give my love to Reyna. Gotta give my love to Rainers. He balled out in that game. He balled out completely in that game. He's pretty much good on the feet. He's pretty much provided some passes. He's quick and all kind of stuff. I'm not saying he's Kevin De Bruyne. Nobody can replace that production and brilliance from Kevin De Bruyne. But a performance like this, albeit a not so good team, is a good start. Of course, City will face Tottenham, and that'll be a different challenge. A different challenge all between. But I think, consider that everybody's saying that Manchester City are just like not the team to win, or pretty much the 4th best team to win the Premier League based on squad, payments, and all that kind of stuff. I think this is a huge statement. This is a huge, huge statement for Manchester City. A huge statement for them. And unfortunately for Chelsea, they did not make a statement against Crystal Palace. No, they did not. They did not make a good statement against Crystal Palace. Eze scored a goal from the free kick. Unfortunately, that was sadly ruled out because of a foul. I'm gonna watch the video and just, see if it was a foul or not, and then I'll come back to you. So I just look at the goal, and it turns out that Eze's free kick, while brilliant, let's be honest, brilliant, it kind of have a little bit of help. So they're like, in case everybody don't know it, there's like 4 walls in the Chelsea, and then a guy comes in, and then one of the players kind of dragged the player away from the wall, away from it, and then it creates a gap in which Eze can shoot and go in. And honestly, I don't think you can do that. I don't think you can't do that and kind of like interfere in the play and all kinds of stuff to like create a goal, of course. So I kind of agree with the referee, but it kind of robbed me of a pretty good goal. And also, you can see that there's some jostling and all kinds of stuff in the the free kick era anyway. So it's kind of like I think it's okay because I think it's okay, but I think it's a bad decision. I think it's a bad decision robbing a pretty good goal by Eze, who, by the way, is having a lot of transfer vultures going around with he and McGahey, by the way. So for him if he scored that goal, and if that goal given, consider everything that's gone through with him and Gay and the team, of course, what a way to kick off that thing. But we got robbed, and it is what it is, which is pretty much brutal. And Chelsea dominated the game. Chelsea dominated the game with the possession and everything else, but cannot find a way to win the game. Cannot even score the goal for the life of me. And by the way, this is the first time that these two teams have drawn for like 30 years. 30 years. Jaw-dropping indeed. And I put the headline, of course, is that Chelsea showing all quality, but sadly no cohesion. That's pretty much the headline, of course, is that, yeah, what they did in the Club World Cup was amazing and all kind of jazz. But when it comes to the Premier League and all this stuff, do you have a cohesive team that is good enough to win? Now, I think there's some okay-ish the performances are okay. Gittins was not great and all. Estevao, he shows some class, of course. João Pedro, not as good. Neto, fine. And Palmer, Cucurella, and the defense was okay, and Reece James actually become healthy for the first time in his lifetime. Was okay. Dean Anderson, good goalkeeper, man of the match, as per usual. But ah, and this is going to be frustrating for Chelsea right now. It's only one game, but I'm feeling frustrated if you're Chelsea right now and looking at his team was supposed to be good, and now it's like they're frustrated and bad. And it's only one game, but they got to get their crap together because right now you're in a, as I said, with Manchester City, they're in a dogfight. They're in a dogfight for the Premier League title. And if you want to be in a dogfight of the Premier League title, you have to put performances against even bigger, stronger teams like Crystal Palace. Or not bigger, stronger teams. More like moderately good teams like Crystal Palace. And if you can't put them away, man, that may come back to bite you in the end. So while this is early this season and it might be 2 points dropped, I feel like this team should just go on and just not saying beat every team, but go on and have some impressive wins. But performances like these, it just makes you feel frustrated, especially in a title race like this. Now, I'm not Brentford versus Nottingham Forest. We all know Nottingham Forest have so many changes, and I mean so many changes. Manager, players going out, and all kinds of stuff, and it shows. Nottingham Forest just outplayed Brentford all across the park. Dominant possession, dominating the goals. Chris Wood doubles his goal scoring tally because everybody's thinking Chris Wood would fall off. No, it did not. Thank goodness for that. And they were impressive and they won. Like Chris Wood, 5th minute, then Nadoye, 42nd minute, and then Chris Wood again in the 45th minute. This game was pretty much over, and then the Brentford's only goal was a Thiago Rodriguez penalty, but at the time, the game was pretty much up. I was going to church anyway, so it was pretty much donezo from like the 5th minute onwards. And I think for Brentford right now, and I put this headline pretty much so scandally, that West Ham, Brentford, and Wolves are going to be in big trouble this season. Now, I know this is an overreaction, but right now, you look at the reasons. West Ham are like transfer business, and the players that they have are just not as high quality. You're going to rely on James Ward-Prowse and Nicholas Fulcrum. That's not going to cut it, Chief. That is not going to cut it. Brentford, of course, you got millions of changes going on, and a new manager comes in directly from the Brentford hierarchy, and he's going to come in to replace the legend that is Thomas Frank. I think it's going to be difficult for him. And I think Wolves are going to have like lack of cutting edge and all kind of stuff. No Cunha, of course, to save them in their goal scoring spree. And the defense looked absolutely woeful. And by the way, this is also their largest ever defeat by their new manager who just came in a couple of months ago. So right now, it just feels like Wolves lost to Manchester City. That's no sugarcoat and no shame. And Brentford lost to Nottingham Forest, a team that managed to finish in the European spots and qualify for the Europa League. Yes, the Europa League. I think they were fine. West Ham, I think losing to Sunderland just made me feel like they're in trouble. But right now, all three are in big troubles with circumstances attached to them. So it almost feels like it's only week one and it's an overreaction. But I feel like these three teams, other than these three promoted teams, are going to be in huge trouble come the end of it. And I feel like one or two maybe in a dogfight for relegation. It might happen, but we'll see. So not much to say about this game. A lot to say about Manchester United versus Arsenal, but though. Now, you look at the scoreline and you think to yourself, okay, Arsenal won, they beat Man United, another loss to Man United, oh, woe is me, panic time for Man United, sack the manager, all that jazz. And fine. I'm not going to be the vocal minority to do that. By the way, I was at church at that time. I didn't get to see much of the game, so there you go. The only goal being scored was by way the traditional Arsenal goal, which is from the corner. Goalkeeper did not handle it. And by the way, our goalkeeper is not Onana, thank goodness. It's Bernard, who is just trash. No sugarcoated, trash. Give me Gigi Donnarumma or give me death. But behind that, United just dog Arsenal? Like 1.52 expected goals, more possession, 22 shots on target, 22 shots, 7 on target to Arsenal's 3. Like we outplay Arsenal, to be honest. And sadly, we didn't win. Or didn't even get a point, to be honest. Which I think is showcased that, okay, United did good. For the first time in like a long while, They did not rely on Bruno Fernandes to like be the hero most of the time. They got decent, good production. Let's just go. Let's just look at the menu. Oh no, actually no. Let's just go back to the whole facts thing, and let's just look at my Man United players. So Cunha and Muembo and Mount did not do that any much. Uh, let's see. Sesko came in at the 65th minute. Pretty much did not do much. Ahmad was pretty much standard. I didn't watch the game, of course. I'm just going on based on stats and everybody else. And Bruno Fernandes going in as a four, of course, pivoting, of course. And I heard a lot of stuff talking about Bruno Fernandes picking up the ball from the back four, which is kind of like a no-no. And other than that, the keeper situation is just not as good right now. And Euro did okay, Delict did okay, Shaw did okay. So overall, I feel like this is a pretty okay performance by Man United. Lost, yes. Panic time, yes. But I feel like that's just a way too quick of a pushing the button and all kind of stuff. I think it's way too quick. I think it's way too quick to do that, especially after one game, especially we finished 15th, mind you. I think it's a little too panicky right now. I think there's a lot of games from here on out. The schedule is brutal, yes. And listen, I think the Sky Sports analysis and all the pundits are saying this. If we finish 8th, that's a good season. If we not be crap in most games and score goals and win matches, then fine. We're not expected to beat Arsenal or Liverpool or the cities of the world. There are tiers above them. They are like, we're down here, they're up there. We're not expecting them to do much. But I just don't want to see Manchester United crumble down, put up a fetal position, and it's lose like that. Like, oh no, they conceded a goal. Guess we're gonna concede and lose 5-0 or something. No, I just wanted to fight. And I feel like from the way the statistical game analysis and all kind of stuff, they show up fight, which is something we have never seen Man United all last season, to be honest. All last season. So while this loss kind of hurt for me, on my birthday, mind you, I think I'm impressed. I think I'm going to be fine. I think Man United will be just fine. I think they'll not be to finish 15th or anything in the mid tables, of course. I think they'll be fine. I think they'll be fine. I think they'll do well, and I think they'll beat Fulham. Now, of course, I'll caution that statement in saying they're facing Fulham, a pretty good team, and they're facing in Craven Cottage. I will treat any team with respect and with admiration with everybody, knowing that, hey, listen, you're Man United, you're a big club, you're supposed to beat these teams. 5 or 10, 15 years ago, yes, but not this time. We might lose to Fulham, we might lose to Burnley, we might lose to anybody team. So I'm gonna go in this season with some cautious optimism about every single game. Gotta take this one game at a time, one match at a time, and one performance at a time. For now, this is a pretty good win, and if you're Man United, you have something to go over with, something to deal with, something that you take heart in, go to the next game. But of course, you need wins. Wins are important in the grand scheme of things. Good performances are great and all kinds of stuff, but unlike, certain teams, you gotta need wins. Arsenal did that, but unfortunately, the performance was not good. Like, I'm sorry, man, but if you rely on corner kicks and be defensively stout, Arsenal, you may not win the Premier League title. May is a good word, but you may not win the Premier League title. I feel like that performance is kind of like not as great in many other prospects, and I think Arsenal should do better. Gyökeres do better. Although this is his first game, I'll give him slack, of course. Zubamendi did fine, all this kind of stuff, but I think Arsenal should do better. And seeing how Liverpool done it against Bournemouth and seeing how Manchester City did against Wolves and seeing Chelsea falter, the onus is on you to actually win this game. And you did win. You did win. You did win. You did the most important thing ever. But you need good performances like this. You need some good performances. So, Arsenal need to perform better. And United did perform better in the rest of the game, other than the goal they conceded. So overall, I feel like these two teams did okay in this game. Nothing too much to say, although it's the first game of the week. First big game of the entire Premier League season. So I think these two teams are going to do just fine. And of course, as we mentioned, Leeds beat Everton 1-0. I'm not going to get too touched on grass. So on to week 2 of the Premier League. And here are the matches coming into this week. West Ham versus Chelsea will be the Friday night game. Hopefully, West Ham needs to win because both teams need a good performance. Chelsea did not do all that jazz. West Ham did not perform well against Sunderland. This is a must-win game for probably both teams. The big game, of course, will be Manchester City and Tottenham at 6:30 a.m. Jesus Christ, why? Huge game for both teams. This is probably the second biggest test for Thomas Frank, next to, of course, the PSG game in the Super Cup. Yes, you beat Burnley, great, but this is a huge test against a Manchester City team that looks poised, that look ready, look everybody else. This is a huge game for Tottenham and a huge game for Manchester City to like re-up themselves to feeling like 2 wins from 2 and against a pretty good team and showcasing that their title aspirations are not as dead as many people think. I think they'll boss that game. Huge game for both teams. Bournemouth Wolves, Brentford Aston Villa, and Burnley Sunderland is our featured 3 games at the call it the mid afternoon games in Britain and all kind of stuff, or the evening games in Britain, or we can call it the American stuff, the 9 a.m. game in daylight savings, of course. I think the feature game is in Bournemouth versus Wolverhampton. I feel like Bournemouth showcased something in Liverpool that feel like they're not an easy team to come out. Wolverhampton needs to pull up a win. They need a better performance against Manchester City. And I think this is going to be a tricky game, of course. At Vitality is a tricky game, of course. All that jazz. And then Arsenal versus Leeds. Pretty much the old rivalry from like way back when. Back in in the 1890s or the 1920s, 1930s, back when they have FA Cup finals and all that stuff. Historical rivalry, even though his rivalry is not as much talk about. And with Leeds getting a huge win. And with Arsenal getting a sneaky win, of course. The owners of Arsenal to perform better against Leeds. We'll see if Leeds could be tested or can they do something. And of course, you got 2 games. Of course, Everton versus Brighton. I think the big match is Crystal Palace versus Nottingham Forest. Crystal Palace versus Nottingham Forest. It's the big match of Sunday. You want to know my reasons? It involves UEFA, the ownership, and multi-clubness. You all know the reasons. Crystal Palace Nottingham Forest is going to be the hottest game of the day. Fulham versus Manchester United. I think I'll temper my cautiousness. Man United should win, but Fulham are a tricky squad, especially bigger against decent opposition. They managed to get an equalizer against Brighton. They go into Craven Cottage. Tough place for Man United to go through. Of course, they got like League Cup coming up against Grimsby, of course. So, pretty tricky week for them. And they got Newcastle versus Liverpool. We don't even need context. So much incredible rivalry in the 90s. Although the last time these 2 teams met against Newcastle, Darwin Nunez, yes, Darwin freaking Nunez scored 2 goals to even beat Newcastle at the time. Newcastle had their issues. Liverpool doing well in the first game, of course. Defensively, I'm worried for Liverpool. But I think Liverpool have the firepower to even beat them. And maybe Isak might face his soon-to-be parent club. Who knows? Who knows in the next couple of weeks in transfers? But that should do it for the very first week of Premier League. And, of course, I enjoyed this first week, of course, marred by the whole situation I talk about with the whole racist thing, of course, in the first match, of course. But I enjoyed this week immensely and all kind of stuff. The league is back, baby. The league is back. Thank you all for watching. Like, comment, subscribe for this channel and all kinds of jazz. Thank you all. And I'll see you next time. And happy birthday to my boy AJ.